continuar.
We're going to move on to
Ray, te
talking
voy a
about our
pedir si puedes
messaging guide. So Anya will
comenzar
be
a
hopping on
mostrar
to
de nuevo los diapositivos.
let us know about the updated messaging
Vamos a
guide.
comenzar la presentación.
Are you going to share the slides?
Yes, Ray is working on getting those up.
Ray está trabajando en eso, en demostrar los.
I have too many tabs open.
Disculpen, tengo muchos páginas abiertas, pestañas abiertas en la computadora, pero ya va a comenzar la presentación.
I think Pastor Green is on now. I see that in the chat. If you want to just introduce yourself, Pastor Green, names, organization, pronouns, and what you're most excited for your upcoming event.
Hi, everybody. And I'm not going on camera because I look a little crazy. Today is my off day and I'm cleaning. So I don't want to scare anybody. But my name is Pastor Sharon Green. I am the Executive Director of Victor Valley Family Resource Center. The pronouns are her and she. And
I'm not sure if Pastor Green wants to introduce themselves. But if not, I can get started.
I'm sorry, can you guys hear me?
So audio might have gotten into the Spanish channel.
It was.
If you just want to drop that in the chat, Pastor Green, I'm so sorry about that.
Sorry, I missed that. Okay, so our messaging hasn't really changed. We just made a new guide to help condense the messaging. And also, I apologize because my voice is a little hoarse today, so sorry if it's hard to hear me. But ultimately, we're trying to create a surround sound drumbeat across the state of people calling out to urge the governor to fulfill his promise to build 1 million affordable homes by 2030. And in order to create that surround sound, that drumbeat, it has to sound like the same. We all have to be kind of saying the same thing. That's the intention of our messaging guides.
Diciendo lo mismo a
So,
es por eso que tenemos esta
one
guía
thing to
de
just,
mensajes.
you know, keep in mind when you're prepping speakers in advance of your events, it's just that they should be able to, if a reporter were to come up to them and ask them, why are you all here today? They should be able to whip that out, like memorized. And that's really kind of some of the intention of the messaging guide, is to help people so that they can really communicate the what and the why of the events that we're doing.
La gente decir por qué se están involucradas.
Sorry, and I'm also just seeing some of this, but so it looks like there's some general messaging. There's also some escalated messaging depending on how much pressure your event is trying to place, and you know how escalated you want to be. So there are a couple of different guides that I think we can share with you all. But the basic frame I want to go through. So let's go to the next slide.
General es esta diapositiva.
So
queremos comenzar con los valores.
In messaging, we often talk about a VPSA, or a values, problems, solutions, action framework.
Okay.
That when we lead with values, that helps bring in the persuadables and
es importante
hook
seguir
them
y siempre
before
comenzar con el
polarize and,
valor, o sea,
talk
la
about the
meta que
problem.
nos
So
une.
the values for this
Antes
is
de que
really
comencemos
that
de hablar del
addressing
problema, ¿cuál
the
es la
housing
meta,
crisis is
la
a top concern
visión
for voters,
que nos une?
that everyone deserves to have a safe,
Entonces, por
healthy, and
ejemplo, en
affordable
este
place to call
caso,
home,
la meta es
and
que
that
todos
housing is a public
merecemos
good.
y
We
merecen
all
un lugar
benefit
seguro,
when we all have
saludable
housing.
y
Those
asequible
are our
para
shared values.
llamar como hogar.
Next slide.
Y la vivienda es un bien público que todos se benefician cuando todos tenemos
So the
una
problem is
vivienda.
that we need to address our growing
Ahora el
affordable
problema.
housing and homelessness crisis.
El problema es
There
que la
are
crisis
roughly
ha aumentado
180,000
que
people
mucha
in
gente
California
no
that are
puede
unhoused,
pagar su alquiler,
only
personas hay sin
1%
vivienda
of the general budget
y que
is
también
spent on affordable
solo
housing and
estamos gastando
homelessness,
un porcentaje de
whereas
nuestro
the
presupuesto
state spends
estatal
6 times more
para la
on prisons.
vivienda.
Only 80,000 homes have been
punto,
built since
que solo se
2022.
han construido 80,000 viviendas
And
desde
so
el 2022.
there's actually another
Y si
piece here that is
necesitamos
missing,
un
but
millón,
another talking
imagínense
point you could
la
use here is
deficiencia.
that the governor
Otro tema
promised to build 1 million affordable homes by
que
2030. He's only spent
podemos
12%
decir
of what it's
es
needed
que el
to reach that
gobernador
goal.
se
And
comprometió a
I'll make sure we
construir 1
update
millón de
these slides
viviendas
to make sure that has that included.
asequibles para el
You can go to the next
2030
slide.
y hasta este punto solo
Oh,
estamos
it's continued. I see. Okay, someone else
cubriendo
changed these slides.
el 12% de las
56%
necesidades
of
del
California
dinero que se
residents
necesita
are
para
severely rent
construir
burdened.
esos millones de casas. Estos otros hechos son
There is a
más
disproportionate impact on people with disabilities,
maneras del
the
problema,
elderly, people
¿verdad?
of color,
El porcentaje de
for the
las
housing
personas
crisis,
que están
and
pagando demasiado para su
inhumane
vivienda.
sweeps are ineffective
¿Cuántas personas,
and fail to
cómo
address the
esto afecta a
crisis.
las personas con discapacidades,
So
personas
a
mayores y
line I
personas
have
color
often
más,
used with reporters
¿verdad?
is that
Y
while there are
finalmente,
180,000 unhoused people, there are only
dice, uno de
70,000
los
shelter
temas que
beds
yo
in the state of California.
siempre me gusta comentarle
So
a los
sweeps
reporteros, es decir, que
don't work.
tenemos 180,000
Sweeping
personas
is for
sin
dust,
hogar,
not for human
pero
beings.
solo tenemos
That's another
70,000
line we've used.
camas para esas personas.
Next
Entonces
slide.
no hay suficiente vivienda.
Solution. We must fund affordable
Finalmente la
housing.
solución.
Gavin
Necesitamos más
Newsom
vivienda
must
asequible.
fulfill his promise to build
El
1 million
gobernador
affordable
necesita
homes by
cumplir con su
2030,
promesa
so we have less
de 1
homelessness
millón
on
de
our streets
viviendas para el
and more
2030
affordable housing options available.
para que tengamos más opciones
Our
de
elected
vivienda.
leaders must invest
Nuestros
in
líderes
affordable
electos
housing at scale to
necesitan
ensure that
invertir
everyone
en
has
estas
a home.
viviendas para a
So
un
that's the
nivel
basic
a gran
frame.
escala para asegurar que todos tengan
Values,
un hogar.
everyone deserves to have a
Eso
safe
es
and affordable place to
la
call home
orden de
because
nuestro
housing is a
mensaje.
public good, because we
Comenzar
all
con
do better when we
la
all have
meta o el
housing.
valor que nos
But the
une.
problem is
El
that
problema,
currently the
¿cuál es
state
el
is only
problema?
funding
¿Verdad?
1%
Que
of
no
our budget
estamos
towards affordable housing.
aportando lo
Only
suficiente
1%,
para las
and
viviendas.
is
Y
spending
mucha
6
gente
times that
está
on
sin
prisons.
vivienda o está pagando
Our
demasiado.
solution is that Gavin Newsom must
Y
fulfill his
nuestra
promise to
solución
build 1 million
es que el
affordable homes by
gobernador
2030.
cumpla con su promesa.
Pretty straightforward. So that's
Es
the gist of the
básicamente
messaging.
la idea.
If
Esa es
you
la
have any
idea de
questions, feel
los
free to drop them in the
mensajes.
chat.
Si
And
tienen
yes, we
alguna
can share
pregunta,
the slide deck.
póngalos en los
And I'll pass
comentarios,
it
por
back
favor.
to whoever's next.
¿Quién sigue?
We'll be moving on
Ivoña
to the next
pregunta en los
section, which
comentarios
will
si
be
vamos a
talking about
compartir los
the media
diapositivos
advisories. So
y sí
Nathan,
los
if you
vamos
can
a
hop on.
compartir con todos después de esta llamada.
Yeah, so these are going to be some more
Okay.
strategies specifically, you know, around the
Estos
events
son
you all could use.
otras
So the
estrategias
first is
para
the media
que
advisory,
más los
which
medios de
purpose is
comunicación
to
lleguen a
invite
sus
and to
eventos,
notify media about your
Okay.
event and to attend the event and to cover
para
and write
que
about the
también
event, right?
notifiquemos
So I
nosotros
believe we've
a
shared
los
out
medios de
2 templates
comunicación
for the
acerca de sus
advisories for
viviendas.
you all to
Tenemos
hopefully
dos
be able to just adapt
bosquejos o
to, you know,
plantillas
put some
para
information
esos
like
avisos a los
the
medios.
location, your organization, and some more
En estos,
specific details about the event,
en estos
but
avisos
with 2
se
different tones, again, like the
comparte el
messaging guide,
propósito
where
y
one
los
is
detalles,
more
dónde va a ser,
neutral, and there's
a
one
qué
that's slightly
horas, en
more
qué lugar,
escalated.
todo eso.
So
¿Quién
it
va a
really
estar
depends
hablar?
on, again, the tone of the event
Tenemos dos
and what you're trying to, or what the
ejemplos
action will
para
be.
que ustedes escojan. Uno es
And
un
in the
poco más
advisory, it's pretty
criticando al
self-explanatory,
gobernador por
but it's
su
really
falta de que
to
no
be
estamos
clear and concise about the
en
who,
buen paz,
what,
¿verdad? A
when,
paso. Y
where, and
otro
the
que está
why.
un poquito más, no
And
critica
after
tanto.
you have your advisory, you know,
Ustedes
you should
pueden
always aim
escoger
to
el que
send it
quieran.
a few days before the event, you know, a week if possible,
Quieren
because
mandar este aviso a los
there's
medios de
a great chance you'll have
comunicación
to do follow-up,
un
you know,
poco de
with
días
the folks you're
antes,
sending it to, at least once.
antes de
And
su
then
evento.
on the morning as well, of the event, just to double check, you know, if reporters have received the advisory and if they are sending someone to cover the event. And that's okay, because to follow up and don't feel like, you know, you're annoying them, because reporters get a lot of different advisories and emails, so it's pretty standard practice to do that. And then something else that the communications working group is going to be talking about too is for places where there's multiple events on the same day, or multiple events in the same region in the same week, might be sending a general advisory just with a list of different events happening. And then for the folks, for the organizations who are hosting the events, you all can still send your own advisories out, almost like as a reminder about the event that's happening. Go to the next slide, please.
El próximo diapositivo.
And then here are some tips and best practices for social media too, as an all-around comprehensive media strategy, right? We'll have the media, traditional media, covering the event, you know, sharing it out to an audience who isn't able to be at the event, or audience that we want to target. The social media is really important too, to be able to reach an audience, a different audience. That's all part of the strategy, right? So with social media, there's two things I wanted to uplift. One is that for the 1 Million Homes campaign, we have a toolkit that we sent out that we're asking organizations to share out every week, which are things from the messaging guide that Anya was talking about, right? So to really uplift the values, the problems, and the solutions as it relates to the campaign. And then we also want to encourage folks to use social media if possible to promote their events and to use it around the event, right? So first, to promote the event, you know, whether it's like save the dates or announcements about, you know, the event, the speakers, the action, what's going to happen. And then also to use as a recap strategy. So make sure to take photos, right, videos, and to share what happened at the event, so that people can see, you know, who the campaign is, that we have people, we have members, we have a large base who are fighting for the same thing and are asking the governor and the state to build 1 million affordable homes by 2030. And then when we do that on social media too, just to make sure to use our campaign hashtag.
Y cuando hagan eso en las redes sociales, asegúrense de usar la clave 1 million homes.
Yeah. So
1 millón de viviendas.
Some best practices for how to reach media. As we know that we want to try and get as much media to be there as possible, or for them to cover your event and talk about your event, so that way your influence is not just to the people who show up to your event, but also beyond it. And so these are some best practices to take. The first is to hopefully in advance you've built up some, maybe over time in your campaign work, you've already built some relationships with reporters. Those are, of course, the best folks to first outreach to, because they trust you and they'll be more likely to respond to your request. But there's also an opportunity in advance to begin to reach out to them and see if you have, likely most of your events are happening in the next week or so, so you probably don't have time. But so you know, in the future, when you build a relationship, for example, if a reporter comes out this time to your event, to follow up with them. And I'll talk a little bit about that in just a moment. So relationships with reporters is really key to our organizing work, as they are part of the people we're outreaching to and educating around our ideas. The second is that as you reach out to different media outlets, recognize that you might want to customize how you reach out to them. So different media outlets might have different political perspectives, have different focuses or focus side on their coverage. So you might be talking to a housing reporter specifically, or another outlet might be focused on Spanish radio, and so you might want to be thinking about what would reach your particular person who will be talking about it on the radio and their audience, things like that. So you might want to customize your pitch to them to ensure that you're as successful as possible. Follow up is the most important strategy. So after a reporter comes out or contacts you, to ensure that you get their phone number or their email and follow up and ask if they need anything from you, can answer any questions, provide them with footage that you've already taken, so that way they can use that for their particular outlet. We already talked about directly pitching to a reporter and personalizing, so I already covered that, but again, it's important to, you know, customize why it's important, why this particular story is going to be important to them. And then one key thing to do is to identify a few storytellers, a few people who might be already speaking at your event, testimonies from tenants or perhaps some key leaders in your community who can talk about the 1 million homes effectively, and the other things that are going to be important to your community to hear out about. So if you can prepare them in advance to know the talking points, so that way when they meet with reporters, they can tell the right story or the right share the right information to ensure that your story is told the way that you want it to be told. And then if there's an opportunity, we're housing now, we have our own, we have a list of press contacts. It's not completely comprehensive, but you know, but we do have a list that we can share with you, and so we can do that. Also, I encourage connecting with other local partners in your area, who might have even stronger lists of local press that you can reach out to and say, hey, do you have a connection to, you know, these outlets, to see if we can invite them, or can you invite them on our behalf? But again, this is our hope for this campaign has always been to support, of course, our statewide priority to highlight why we need million homes, why we need the million affordable homes in the state. But the other side of it is really to support your own organizing capacity in your region. So we hope that these, the guidance that we're providing today can support not just this particular public event, but really support a longer term relationship with media and outlets to help raise up the interests of your community and the voices of your communities in the long haul. I see a question from Vanya.
Yes, thank you, Pastor Ray. I am new to the group, and I just wanted to ask if you all are actually looking at access. So I know we need to get the houses built or the units built, but oftentimes we see units built, but there's not enough allocated to very low or, you know, extremely low income people, or it's not accessible by people with criminal convictions or eviction histories. So I was wondering, in terms of the strategy, is there going to be part of the work about making sure that these units are actually for low income and extremely low income people, and that there are no barriers to housing, so that we don't continue to see the disparities that we see now?
For us, there is a prioritization to ensure. That's why the Million Homes campaign actually is rooted on the idea that the plan, Home for All Californians, that was created by Governor Newsom, the plan is actually 2.6 million units by 2030. The focus for us on the 1 million homes is because in the report itself, it names that 1.2 million of the 2.6 is specifically targeted for extremely low income and low income households. So it is the million homes we're fighting for is specific to meeting the needs of those who are most at risk of falling into houselessness or already housing unstable. So that is embedded in even the foundation of this campaign. But absolutely, I'm wondering, and I'll turn it to Anya, that maybe some of our messaging talking points might need to include that, because that might not be, we might not be direct enough about how important this prioritization needs to be if we really want to solve our homelessness, particularly issue, and our affordable housing needs. Just because we know those who are in extremely low income households are closer to houselessness than our other community members are at the moment. Anya, do you have any suggestions or thoughts on this, or any other folks have any ideas or thoughts?
I think it's just important to make sure we always say a million affordable homes. Not just, don't just say we need a million homes, we need a million affordable homes. We are pushing only for affordable. So just always repeating affordable. This isn't just build. This is a build affordable.
And barrier free. So they can build affordable housing, but it won't help the people we work with because they have criminal convictions and so, or they have evictions. And so I don't know strategically that now would be the time to lift up those other things, but I think internally we should probably have a strategy for making sure that we don't do all this work and then find out that our people can't even get in them. Because of some other barriers that are, erected in the name of public safety.
Absolutely, Vanya. And I think this is the very beginning where we're dipping our toes into the waters to build up this campaign. And I think as we build and get people comfortable, we're just educating people, because I don't think most Californians realize that there is even a plan. Most people are like, we're in despair. It's hopeless. That's it. Exactly. So now we just need to tell folks, did you know the state actually has a plan, but we're not doing anything about it. And what we're hoping to do, and I'm so glad you brought this up, because I've also talked with environmental justice groups who said we also need to emphasize that they're going to all be climate resilient. It's in there, it's like this tiny little 2 words, but it's not enough. We need to be specific about, like, when we say we need affordable housing, what kind we need and for who, right? So, but I think that's going to be step 2 of the campaign. So we will absolutely have a debrief and also begin talking, especially at a retreat. So I hope you can join us at the Housing Now retreat, where we're going to be talking about what is phase 2 of this campaign. This campaign's only for another 3 weeks. So we're going to push hard to get this done, but this is only, like I said, we're dipping our toes in the water. The next step will be, now let's lay down what specifically we need and how we're going to get there. And that how is really important for us. And so we need to come figure that out together. So thank you for your question. I hope I answered it. Any other questions on my piece or what we've heard already?
¿Alguna otra pregunta acerca de mi parte de la agenda?
Hi, thank you, Reverend Ray. I have a question. People have asked me, and I know that there's a certain number to it. I don't like answering with, I got to get back to you, because I'm not too sure on that. And one of the questions is, there are numbers of how many homes he has built, but they're private, right? What's that percentage?
That's a good question. I don't know that we have that information, but I'm going to mark it down as something that we will need to research and find out, because I think that's really key. And we know that public housing has been underfunded significantly and continues to be underfunded. So yeah, that's a great question to ask. I just say that one of the things that we have made in one of our asks for this Million Homes campaign is that we look into and pursue new models of housing that looks like social housing. And so that it is not privately owned on the speculative market, but off the speculative market, community owned, public owned, community land trust models. So that way we're thinking not just about short-term sustainability, but real long-term sustainable affordable housing for everybody.
Right. So those are just some of the things that I've been running into that I would want clarification on, just to deliver the message like precise and to the best of its capability, you know? So I would appreciate some on that. That would be great. Thank you.
Of course, thanks, Yesenia. Also, I hope somebody from our team is taking notes because I'm sharing my screen so I can't. So we can retain that. But one thing that we might not have shared with you yet is, or I think we tried to, but anyway, we will make that more available and I can share it in the chat when I'm done sharing my screen, or maybe one of my staff can, is that we actually have a document stating how many units per region, per county. So that might be a useful number for you to use to also be talking to your electeds about and to your members about. Other questions, thoughts? Thank you so much for these questions and ideas, y'all. Okay, I'm going to pass it on to the next person, which I don't know who that is.
Going back to just photos and videos for the events that you all are going to host. So just a reminder to always take photos of the events and videos, and make sure that's part of the plan, right? Because sometimes it might need a person dedicated to doing that and going around the event the day of. And make sure to take a variety of photos, right? So things that are important include like banners, right? The slogans on the banners, any visuals, groups of people, the signs, because those really show strength in the numbers of people that we have. It shows power, right? Especially thinking about like actions, or if there's like chants or like people like putting their fists up or things like that. And then for videos too, thinking about what you want to be able to share out after, right? So things like elected officials' speeches, if there are elected officials there. So then you can like go in after and maybe like clip parts of what they said and be like, hey, you know, you said this, like, where are we at? Or are you gonna, if they're supporting us, be like, oh, you know, so-and-so elected official supports the 1 million home campaign. So thinking about how you can use the photos and videos afterwards. And other videos you would want to record also, like I was saying, actions, if there's any marches, if there's speeches, so you can get highlights from it afterwards, or any testimonials from renters, right, or folks who are sharing their stories out. And for both the videos and photos, think about taking a variety of orientations too. So portrait, right, versus landscape. Those are also things to think about depending on where you might want to share it out and what would be more appropriate, right? Because certain social media platforms are more just show vertical content a little better than landscape. So it would be always good if you can to just take a mix of both. And then you can think about and choose where you want to share it out to and how after the event. So like I was saying, some ideas, you know, to be able to use the photos and videos include, you know, email blasts to your members afterwards, to show, hey, you know, like this happened, look at all the people who showed up, look at what we did, to really energize your members and folks. You can use it on social media to continue pushing for demands, and again, to show the numbers that we have. And then also sometimes it would be good, you know, if you have reporters covering it or reporters who can't make it, you know, to be able to share some photos for them. And then also something that I didn't mention too that you could consider related to photos and videos too is like live streaming, right? If you have that capacity and it's a large event, you can also live stream. And that's also something that would be appropriate to send to reporters, you know, as part of your advisory. Be like, oh, that event will also be live streamed here, you know, for folks if they can't make it but still want to cover and get like sound bites or see who's speaking there, etc. So those are just some tips around photos and videos and how you can really be thinking about that when you're planning your action or before, and designating at least a person to doing that. So you have all the things that you get from the action and can use after.
Hay mucho que puedes
I have a question, sorry, that you keep seeing the screen move. I was trying to figure out how to raise my hand and I don't know how well I share my screen. But I was wondering if you think we should be tagging Governor Newsom or our legislators also, as well as the hashtag, if that you think that would be useful.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, definitely. And then I mean, as long as it like matches the tone, right, of the other communications materials that you have around the event. You know, obviously if you're doing a more neutral tone, it doesn't make sense to like tag Governor Newsom and be like, hey, F you, you know, you haven't fulfilled your promise, etc. But just make sure that the messaging is aligned. And I think, yeah, tagging is like very useful and important too. So thanks for reminding us.
Thanks so much, Nathan, for all that information, and Ray as well.
Nathan, por toda esa información.
I'm just going to give a few short, before we move on, actually, I did want to ask any comms people who are on this call, is there anything you felt is missing from what we've talked about, or any gaps or additional tools and resources that y'all feel would be helpful?
Quisieran compartir con el grupo ahora.
One thing that I think could be helpful is thinking through what art and culture you're using as part of your public event that can help carry the message further and really capture who you are, the identity of your community. When I say art and culture, I mean things like signs, banners, symbols that really allude to who you are and what you're fighting for. Some of this can be things like signs that say housing is a human right or housing is a public good. It could be photos or of your community members. It could be maybe if it's a faith-based community, it could be a ritual that captures who you are as a community, but how you're also bonded in what you're fighting for. You know, such as trying to think of an example. I'm a Christian pastor, and so we often have mass together or communion, where you have bread and wine together as a form of unity in our faith. And so sometimes those symbols could be useful in demonstrating that we're all connected and that we are providing nourishment for each other. And nourishment includes homes for everybody, something like that. Quotes maybe from important figures, important times and contexts that make up your community, that captures the values of who we are and what we're fighting for. Or even like a rainbow, right? A rainbow symbolizes both the diversity that is also together. It also symbolizes a promise, you know? And so like, and also symbolizes an identity for the LGBTQ community, right? And so there's all these symbols that we can raise up and be thinking about how to make the space or maybe sing songs that really capture the sentiment. But that art and culture, those traditions and those rituals are a big part of oftentimes what creates communal identity. It's also fun. And it also raises up the messaging that we're trying to lift up and the values that we hold up and are committing to and fighting for. I see Sylvia's hand.
Yeah, just a note about when people are taking video, make sure that your audio is working. And make sure that that the audio that you're taking can be heard, particularly if you're sending video to, say, a radio station. They need to have good audio. So if you have like a portable boom mic, that would be helpful. If you don't, try to get as close to the speaker as possible. Also with photos, Oh, let me back up about the video. Just reiterate what Nathan's point about taking a mix of between vertical and landscape, because television prefers landscape or horizontal positioning, whereas on some of the social media platforms like Instagram, it's a vertical orientation.
Maneras de grabar
what else? Take a variety of shots. You want to take
tomen una variedad de
for your
fotos,
speakers, if
muchas
you
fotos
can get close-up shots,
de
that's
sus
good, but you also want to
presentadores
take wide shots of crowds.
y también hablando,
yeah,
demostrando
that's what I would
la
say.
audiencia atrás de esa persona. Dice Tran en el video que sería bueno incluir capciones en
Thank you
en
so much
diferentes
for all
idiomas
that.
para sus videos.
We're going to move on just to two updates.
Vamos
One is on the
dos
text
actualizaciones
banking.
finales.
We've spoken to some of all of the groups should have been spoken to about the text banking opportunity that we have.
Mensajes de
An
textos
update about that
invitándole
is
a
that we
personas
will
en
be
su
able to get the
área.
first round of
Dice,
texting out this Friday,
textos se van
meaning
a mandar
that some
comenzando
of the
este
organizations who are hosting your events
Entonces,
this week,
eso significa que algunas
before Friday, we
organizaciones
won't
o
be able to
eventos
get,
antes del
those
viernes,
announcements out to
pues
your community
no
members
se
through
van a
text banking.
poder. Obviamente ya
And
va a
that's
haber
also just a
pasado el evento
reminder
antes del
for the
viernes.
rest of the groups.
Le pedimos disculpas por
If you can
eso.
send me your RSVP links and the media
Estamos
for
recordándoles
your
que necesitamos
events so that we can get
todavía
that out
algunos
as well.
grupos todavía
That
no
would
nos
be
han
great.
mandado sus volantes
We
o
do
su
also have
vínculo para
some
registrarse.
resources for y'all in terms
Y también
of
queremos compartir
translation
algunos otros
that can
recursos.
be very
Por
helpful.
ejemplo, hay
The first
varios
is right
áreas
here.
donde
I will
uno
put it in
puede
the chat. It is
ir
called
en
DeepL.
línea para
It's a
poder
translation
traducir
AI
información si la necesitan.
resource. It's free to make an account and free to use, although it is a little more limited.
Gratis.
And then there are also
También
Google Chrome extension, like the Google Translate extension that you can use, in which if you go on a web page, you can just right click and hit translate into the language that you need, and it'll just translate the entire web page for you. If you have any questions around these two resources, you don't understand how to use them, you want to learn more, I'm putting my email in the chat. Feel free to reach out to me by email and I can walk you through how to use these two resources for translating.
Pero era una manera de poder traducir toda su página web.
And with that, we'll just move on to our closing. Next steps from this, I will be emailing out everyone these slides, all the resources we've gone over. Within this presentation, this will all be emailed out to everybody. And if you have any additional resources, any questions, any help that you need for your media, you can go ahead and reach out to Nathan. Nathan, if you could just drop your email in the chat, that would be great. I just want to leave the space open. I know we are over time a little bit, but if anyone has any further questions, go ahead, feel free to drop those in the chat. And if we can't get to them right now, we can definitely follow up with
Y si no podemos contestar su pregunta en este momento, pues también se pueden contestar después.
Other than that, thank you so much, everybody, for showing up for this meeting. I hope it was helpful to everyone.
Espero que les haya servido.
Like I said, I'll be emailing out all this information after our meeting. So hopefully y'all can make use of these resources. Thank you so much, Nathan and Francisco, for translating.
Compartir. Muchas
gracias. Take care, everybody.
Me piden a mí, muchas gracias a todos. Muchas gracias a todos. Tengan buen día. Hasta luego. Juana, ya podemos conseguir la traducción y la interpretación, ya lo tenemos asegurada. ¿Ok? Perfecto.
Gracias, Dios les bendiga. Ojalá que nos puedan acompañar.
Te mando el volante.
Claro.
Claro.
Dios le bendiga.
Sí. Pues obviamente para el evento local de ustedes.
Gracias,
Hasta luego,
Dios les
Ana
bendiga.
y Juana.
Hasta luego, muchas gracias.
Bye.
A ustedes,
Bye.
Dios les bendiga, se cuidan.
Gracias igualmente. Thank you, everybody.
Should we stop the
Do we
recording?
know who the Firefly's AI note taker is?
It was Sonia.
Okay. Okay. Alrighty.
Yes.
Okay.